So here's what the 60-minute segment taught me, someone who's been monitoring the Alien Enemies Act scandal where the Trump administration deported about 237 young men who are migrants and immigrants in the United States without granting them due process to a torture prison in El Salvador. Now, there was an expose that was going to air on Sunday on 60 Minutes that got shelved, according to reports, because Bari Weiss said the Trump administration didn't want it to air because it's going to expose a lot of the things I'm going to tell you were exposed, but it was aired in Canada. So a lot of the folks from Canada have been sharing it, and it's leaked, and I got to see it as 20-minute segment. It verified a lot of things, and it's actually scary. There's some scary legal things, but also some good things that's, good in terms of like some accountability in terms of lawsuits and redress for the people who were hurt. And then there's one case that's not good. And then there's another one that looks like it might have a happy ending. So there are actually 3 legal matters that cases that are high profile that are implicated that I'm going to talk about in the back end. On the front end, I'm just going to give you a quick little recap of what this is about. For the most part, it's about propaganda, where the government of El Salvador wanted to present and show off this brand shiny new torture chamber that they launched in 2022. But they wanted to hide the fact that they are committing torture behind it, because they are signatories to United Nations Convention Against Torture, and which says they're not supposed to do torture act. And so, but they have been. But they use propaganda, they use social media to try to make a fake facade. And that's something that we learned in the 60-minute segment. We also learned that some propaganda that Kristi Noem's have been using, something that she paid our tax dollars, $200 million in a no-bid emergency contract, which is a form of corruption, to her friend, who was the Department of Homeland Security Deputy Tricia McLaughlin, who I cannot stand. Her husband just gave $200 million to that woman's husband to go create propaganda. One of the propaganda was this video clip that she did, standing behind these men, saying, these are the people that we saved you from, and if you come to the United States, you're going to be like these guys, you're going to go sent to propaganda. That's what the 60-minute segment revealed to us. And I'm just going to give you a little bit more details about that. And on the back end, if you want to know the accountability part, to the extent that the 60-minute segment is going to actually help in 3 jurisdictions, 3 cases, and one of them in front of a district court judge in Maryland regarding Kilmar Garcia. The other one where there's a class certified by Judge Jim Bolstered, who is an expert in foreign surveillance. He used to be the chief of that. He is the chief judge of the federal district court in D.C. There's 2 matters in front of him. And then there's another matter that's kind of sad. It's really sad. Is Judge Stephanie Gallagher was overseeing a case regarding one of the men that got sent off, who was not supposed to be sent, like Kim Albrigo, because he was the recipient or he was part of a class that had previously certified of young unaccompanied minors that came before 2019. There was a class that said they shouldn't be deported at all. Definitely they shouldn't be sent to Venezuela, and that's where he ultimately ended up. And we don't know where he is now. It's sad. So that's the one that's kind of sad. So first, let me quickly just give you a bit of background just to catch you up if this is new to you before I get into the 60-minute segment's revelations. Also, so what Trump has been doing as part of the Project 2020 agenda, they identified old laws rarely used to justify means for him to use emergency power, executive emergency power, to bypass Congress. So the thing he's doing with the boats and things like that, and sending troops to blue cities and just all the lawlessness to avoid it. They're relying on laws, but the laws they're relying on aren't justified. And that's why the Supreme Court just ruled against them recently. So the Alien Enemies Act is a 17th century law. Donald Trump issued an executive order on March 14th invoking that law, saying based on this law, we're going to ground up Venezuelan members of Tren de la Agua gang, which he says they're alien excursions. And the ACLU, on behalf of some of the men who were sent off, got notice of this and quickly ran to the district court judge. They luckily drew the jaw of Judge Jim Bolstered, who is the chief of the federal district court judge. He also is a former head of the Federal International Surveillance Commission of Court. And so he knew, his spidey senses went up and said, they're doing this under the cover of law really, really quickly. This is crazy. This does not look kosher. I want to stop. So he issued an oral order at 4 p.m. in front of Drew Ensign, who was the Department of Justice lawyers, and asked Drew Ensign, do you know of any planes going inside? Drew Ensign lied. We know he lied because there's a whistleblower named Erez Ravine said that he was well aware. And a current Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge, Emil Bouvet, who recently is a subject of an ethics investigation and ethics complaint already. He just got on the bench. He told them, no, we're going to do this. And recently also, Kristi Noem went on record and issued a declaration saying the final call was up to her, because that's the matter with the legal case that I'm going to tell you about later on. Anyway, for the most part, he issued an order. The judge, Jim Boasberg, issued an order saying do not send those men to CECOT. And they did anyway. They defied the order on the guys and taking advice saying, well, it was an oral order. You should know that it's irrelevant that the order was oral, because imagine if you were being prosecuted in court for some crime and the government didn't meet their case. And so the judge, while you're standing there waiting for whether you're guilty or not, the judge says you're not guilty orally. You would be relieved. You don't need the judge to actually memorialize the fact that you're not guilty in paper. So they knew orally at 4 p.m. that they weren't supposed to send those flights up. And the judge also said, if you are in control or dominion of them, even if the plane has landed in the other country, so long as the United States government still has control, you can just put them back and bring them back. And so I can properly determine whether or not that was a proper use of that act. Since then, just FYI, so you know, there's been several judges, district court judges, court of appeals have all said that that use of that law was unlawful. It's when we are in wartime. It was last used for the war, I think World War II. It was used during World War I, during the War of 1812 or something like that. It's a wartime law. And we're not at war with Venezuela, though I see them trying to pick a fight with Venezuela. But in any event, it was improper use of it. But by the time they disobeyed the law, and here's the thing where social media also came into play, they can't help themselves because they're constantly litigating these matters in front of MAGA. And so is El Salvador. So El Salvador president, Nayib Bukele, decided to tweet around 8 o'clock or so video. And in the video footage, it showed the United States government around 8 o'clock with control of those 237 men, bringing them into the facility. So the judge's oral order was actually written down around 7:30 something. So by the time that video footage showed live footage of them coming in, they knew that they were supposed to return them back. The written order was already down, so they were supposed to return those men back, but they decided, no, we're going to disobey the court order. And so that's what this is all about, this disobeyance of the court order. That's what the legal stuff is about. Now, for a long time, that they lied in him and hawed and said, we don't know how to bring them back. We have no way of putting them back. In the Cromwell Perego Garcia case, all 9 Supreme Court justices said, bring that man back, because one of the Department of Justice attorneys named Erez Ravine, the whistleblower, went in front of Judge Paul Azenas and says it was an error. He should not have been returned. So the United States Supreme Court said, if you're admitting it as an error, you should return him. The United States Supreme Court, all justices said that all those men were entitled to due process, habeas corpus, a term that Kristi Noem didn't even know what that meant when they asked her when she was first put before the Oversight Committee in Congress. She was like, I don't know. Don't have unqualified sycophant hold these jobs. Oh, my God. So all 9 United States Supreme Court justices, all those men are entitled to due process, which means the right to confront the evidence, who's accusing you of things, present evidence, have a lawyer, and defend themselves. And I'm going to tell you why most of those men are going to win their case. So before they win their case, they had to be tortured. And that's what was discovered during the 60-minute segment. And this gets to the 60-minute segment. Through the 60-minute segment, we got a little bit more insight. They interviewed about 2 to 3, I think 2 of the men who were there. And they reported that the lights were on 24 hours, which is a clear violation of United Nations Geneva Convention Against Torture. You can't do that. And there was heat. And he said that they were sexually assaulted, that they were put in the hole in confinement. All of those are torture and against the UN Convention. So clear violation, allegement. Now, the alleged allegations were confirmed. Why? Social media. The El Salvador government had allowed several social media influencers to tour and show off the facility. Now, there are some international watchdog groups, some human rights organizations, some students that got together and used the footage from the social media influencers. This is what we learned in 60 Minutes, and we're able to create a map to determine where the Venezuelans were staying. And that's how they were able to learn that when Kristi Noem did that video saying, these are the people that we caught. If you come to this country and you are not, you're going to end up here like these men. Those were all MS-13 gang members who most likely would have been there already, who probably were never in the United States. So she was using those people as propaganda.
Here at CECOT today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crime.
And that's what we got from the 60-minute segment. The conference, we got the 2 to 3 men say what they did to torture, which is a violation. Now we know it's a clear violation. It was confirmed because accounts were confirmed because the experts were able to see where the social media influencers saw the isolation spot that they mentioned. The social media influencers revealed the actual weapons that when they say there's a weapon they used to keep them down, to shock them, they revealed that in the social media videos. And so every single thing, the accounts that these 2 men said, and also remind you, Kilma Abrego Garcia, when he came back, and that's why they say people who go in this facility never come out. Why they don't want to come out? Exactly why. Because we have these 2 men sharing their stories. Kilma Abrego Garcia shared his story. Something he shared in his story, you should know, is really important. I want you to take this, is that he said in his declaration for his case that when he arrived, the senior CECOT prison official who was very much aware of what MS-13 looks like, tattoos, you saw them in Kristi Noem's video, and that's his job. That prison is in El Salvador. El Salvador is MS-13 gang hub. That's where they came from. That prison senior official looked at Kilma Abrego Garcia's tattoos, including his knuckles, and said, there's no signs of MS-13 here. You are free. Kilma Abrego Garcia said he was put in a cage with non-gang members, and they would be threatened if they didn't behave. He said, you don't behave, we're going to put you with a gang member. So I trust that a senior prison official at CECOT in El Salvador to say that Kilma Abrego is not MS-13 before I trust the Trump administration. And all of those Fox News hosts that just says he is an MS-13 member committed slander and defamation repeatedly. So for every instance, not just Fox, any well-oiled person who said he is a gang member, his team should go and sue for as much money as he can, settle in Costa Rica, and live a happy life. Because all this did was just make them rich. Because the class action lawsuit, I'm going to talk about later on, ultimately, we're going to be paying out a lot of money out of our tax dollars to compensate these men who were here from another country and just got tortured by our country. And they're going to sue, and they're going to win, and their lawyers are going to make a lot of money, and they're going to make a lot of money. And all they had to do was leave these people alone and not with them. All they had to do. Anyway, so I digress. Anyway, speaking of I digress, you like my No Human is Illegal sweatshirt? It's one of my most popular saddle shirts. You can go to jjlegal.com and get a Trump Legal Survival Kit for free in exchange for your email. It includes Know Your Rights cards over 14, Know Your Rights at the border, Know Your Rights when you're protesting, Know Your Rights when you're detained, Know Your Rights when you're approached by ICE, Know Your Rights at the border, Know Your Rights when you are traveling, Know Your Rights in red states, Know Your Rights how to get in on these class action lawsuits over 14. I also included in that guide where you can access the court's documents and actually get copies of these cases so you can follow along. So you can be a docket queen like me, just guidance, and I get that in exchange for email because who knows, this topic is quite polarizing. Anyway, so that's what you can get. And you can also go in there, JJ Legal, and sign up and get some of my merch, like No Human is Illegal merch. So I digress a lot. Back to the point. So the main point is that we discovered from the 16-minute segment verification, validation that there is indeed torture going on, that Kristi Noem is full of shit, and then that was all propaganda as well. And also we kind of discovered that United States government and El Salvador were doing this in cahoots. And when the Trump administration was telling Stephanie Gallagher, who is another district court judge, was hearing another case about someone who was deported, Judge Paula Zinas and Judge Jim Bolstered, that they had no way of sending them back. We do know that on behalf of 4 of the men, there was a investigation launched and complaint filed with the United Nations Human Rights Division, and El Salvador was contacted to provide, decide where is this man and why can't you send them back to the United States? The United States is saying it's up to you, and which El Salvador, which was thrown on the bus, said United States government threw us on the bus. Actually, United States government paid us and is paying us, and that was confirmed. We already knew it, but during the 60-minute segment, there was further confirmation. The United States government is paying us to keep these people. So at any given moment, the United States government wants us to send somebody back, they can send someone back. So that is yet further proof that, in the legal case, that the Trump administration subject to criminal contempt. So they just lied. They lied to Judge Stephanie Gallagher. They lied to Judge Jim Bolstered. They lied to Judge Paula Zinas about their ability to bring the people back. It was just constant lying. They lied to the extent to which they said why they do this, and it was just a bunch of lies and bullshit. So at least 2 of them, all of them actually, are considering criminal contempt. Judge Jim Bolstered is actually actively in his criminal contempt. I'm going to tell you about that later on. But this segment was just great to have those experts, to have those folks identify and clarify to the extent to which torture was going on. They used their own social media against them, and the extent that the one expert said that Venezuelan, this is a really big point also, that Venezuelan, unlike El Salvador, gangs do not use tattoo. Yet we know that a good chunk of the men, and Department of Homeland Security's own data says that only 30 of them had criminal detainers, and 60 Minutes reporting later on said like 70-something% had no criminal matters. So to the extent to which El Salvador said send your criminals, that was a lie. They didn't even send criminals. They just sent these people just to be tortured. We know that they also sent them who they picked based on tattoos. You're young, you're Venezuelan, you're a gang member. Again, I don't trust the Trump administration. A bunch of gringos, racists. They didn't know what they were doing. They sent this man, I'm gonna put a clip here. The guy, they said, they looked in his phone and they found a photo of him in his Facebook was sitting next to somebody. The person was given a gang sign, like a peace sign. And we already know there's history of historically black colleges and universities, sororities and fraternities have certain symbols that's part of their sorority and their fraternity, and they have been accused of being gang sides. So it's just racist. Like when white people see brown and black people, just symbols, they have no cultural awareness, no cultural like IQ whatsoever about anyone that's not white, and they assume the worst. They say, oh, that's gang, and it's not gang. So that's how they were just telling these men. That guy went to be tortured because there was a Facebook picture of him next to somebody hold up a sign. It could have been a peace sign. I want you to think about the fact that Pedro Luis Salazar Cuervo was sent to an El Salvadoran prison because he had a photo of himself on Facebook in his personal social media, and the person that he was standing next to had tattoos. And that was enough evidence for the United States government to send this man to be tortured for 100 days. Think about that. And inept they are. And we know that they send people who had like a Real Madrid tattoo, someone who had an Autism Speaks tattoo, someone who had a tattoo dedicated to their town where they lived in Venezuela. There was a barber, there was a gay hairdresser, there was a kid who came to the United States, got temporary protective status awarded by the United States government, meaning that once you get temporary protective status, you actually go through a background check. And on his way, they just picked him up from the airport, separated him from his mom and sister, and they sent him to CECOT. And his mom was like, God damn it, I told that kid don't put those tattoos. He just loves tattoos. And now we know, because of the 60 Minutes segments, that tattoo meant absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. No reason that you're saying you have tattoos and so you must be a gang. That's just some racist bullshit narrative. And thank you, 60 Minutes, for exposing that. So they had no reason for sending those men. Trash administration and the Department of Homeland Security and the immigration facility officials that are under this trash regime need to all be fired because they don't know what they're doing. And it was a big expose, and thank you so much. Now I'm going to talk about the legal cases. So now you caught up to the extent to which the 60 Minutes exposed factually and confirmed some things. Now, how do those facts matter legally? If you're interested in that, stay tuned. I'm going to continue this video on that side. And it's getting kind of long. So now it's like we're going into the 20th something minutes. So hopefully it's just under 30 minutes and no much longer. So how this all plays into the legal cases, there are 3 judges that were adjudicating the various different men that were disappeared. One, Jim Boasberg, the class of everyone, he created a certified class. So you imagine a class action lawsuit or class certified, they'll be alleging sort of things, making sort of claims regarding their rights and what happened to them, and the class is going to move according to that. And now you have verification of some of those facts from that 60 Minutes report. So that helps the class certification. It's on that track. Jim Boasberg is also, like the other 3 judges, considering criminal contempt. Stephanie Gallagher, who is seeing the case of a young man named Christian, who I mentioned earlier in this segment, is a young man who came to this country from Venezuela before 2019. There was a class certified to say they shouldn't be deported. He was sent to CECOT. And you may or may not know from the segment, or may not, is that after sometime in July, after 100 days at CECOT, the Trump administration arranged for a swap of all of those prisoners in Venezuela for 10 United States American citizen journalists or something like that. So the issue with that is some of the men left Venezuela because they were critical of the regime, and they left because they felt they were tortured or persecuted. And under the United Nations Convention Against Torture, you're not supposed to send someone back to a country where they had a claim, where they were claiming, or they asserted that they would be persecuted. And some of those people granted TPS status or had asylum cases active. So you send them back to that nation in violation of UN Convention Against Torture. But you're saying, well, El Salvador sent them there. However, you arranged for a swap knowing that the people that you were swapping, some of them have active claims. So it's kind of hard to say it was El Salvador did it. And now looking at the dockets, there was a lot of language to say it was El Salvador on their own doing, but did you or did you not negotiate it? It's kind of like, I don't understand how they argue 2 different things that are inconsistent, and they act like as if people don't have eyes. It's clearly you guys arranged this to arrange for people who have active claims of asylum and persecution. So Christian is lost. At one point during his case, JOP is the case, because he was given a pseudonym because he was a young kid that was under 18 at the time, just a young person. And he said he doesn't want to come back. And then he started communicating with lawyers, and now he's gone. So it's possible that he was hurt because he left because he was fearing persecution. And now he disappeared. He's gone. Anyway, no words for that. I'll keep you updated because that case continues, and some of it is under seal. So it's possible they found him, and I'll keep you updated. So that's one case. Now, as to, she was going to do criminal contempt, but it's kind of just Stephanie Gallagher. I don't know if it's still out there, but she says that I trusted the Trump administration to be honest and forthright. So they've not. And the 60 Minutes shows that a lot of it was just for fake. It was propaganda. It was never about safety. It was always about messaging, using El Salvadoran prison to send a message to the world to not come here if you're Hispanic or Latino and you're a man, because this is what happens to you. We send you to a prison to be tortured. And Judge Paula Zenas, she's sent Kim Albrigo home for the holidays. I'm going to share a video about that later on in my account. You can look for it. It might be here already, depending on what time you watch this video. And said that they have until Friday to decide where they're going to send him, because they presented 4 different African nations. All the African nations says, we never said we're going to take him. They just lied. They kept lying. Each time they come to court, she says, you keep sending me lawyers who don't know what the hell they're saying. They don't know. They just say, we're not quite sure. They're saying maybe. And she says, it doesn't work like that. That's why she released them. She's the law says you can only hold someone 90 days if you have an active deportation case. Then she learned out that there was no removal. They've never revived the removal. It's only been they've only had against Kemal Rebecca an order from withholding of removal. Never a removal. So all this time, they say he has an active removal case. He never did. So she said, God damn it, and she released him. And she said, what do you want to deport him? He's already said he's willing to go to Costa Rica because Costa Rica's on this coast. They said they would accept refugee status. He can quickly see his wife and his kid and his stepkid if he's in Costa Rica. They insist on trying to punish him by sending him to West Africa. At one point, they said they're going to deport him, but they forgot. They brought him back and tried to get him prosecuted in Tennessee over some bogus shit that's about to be dropped. And then they say they're going to deport him, and the judge was like, how the hell are you going to deport him? You say he has an active case in Tennessee. You brought him back to be, and you said you're going to wait till you get justice in Tennessee, but y'all keep on social media popping off saying he's about to be deported on Friday. He deported on Friday, but the case in Tennessee don't even start the trial to January. What are y'all doing? It's the ineptitude. She's like, you know what? I'm going about to release him, so you can't ever rearrest him. If you don't tell me what you plan to do with this man by Friday, they don't know. I'm tired of it. She should just do criminal contempt. But I don't know. Jim Bolstered, now, his criminal contempt pleading got paused twice. Again, this is why I got paused twice, just FYI. The way, if you follow me, you may already know, that the way United States government works, we have 12 circuits, Court of Appeals, and the one D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. So when you lose from the district court level, you can appeal. When you appeal, you don't immediately get all the judges, like 9 to 10 or 12 judges on a panel. In your case, you get a random draw of 3. Then if you lose the random draw in 3, you can then ask for en banc, the full panel. And then if you lose the full panel, you could go to the Supreme Court. It's the federal bench. So for some reason, Donald Trump keeps drawing the 2 of the Court of Appeals judges that he stuffed in there. One of them is former lawyer. And they always rule for Donald Trump. So they paused twice. They were able to pause the contempt orders. But again, like I said, after you lose, you appeal to the full circuit. The full circuit is very liberal. It's in D.C. And the chief judge of the district court is Jim Bolstered. So some of those people in the Court of Appeals, he knows them pretty well. So, and they're criminal contempt. So they're not going to be able to escape the criminal contempt. So they can't escape it. And then if it goes up to the Supreme Court, I wonder, because Chief Justice Roberts last fall, 2024, and also earlier spring, said that the executive needs to leave his judges alone and abide by the judges' decisions. And I had done a video in the past, I think it was a video, just sharing the extent to which all the conservative justices in the past had issued orders or in cases when they said that the executive branch needs to adhere to the decisions of the federal district court judges. They've all defended the federal district court judges in past, but for some reason they forgot about that. Anyway, so Jim Bolstered is considering criminal contempt, and they can't stop it. They also can't stop the class certification. Why? Because, like I mentioned before, I don't know if I did mention it before, but all 9 United States Supreme Court justices said that those men are entitled to habeas corpus, meaning they're entitled to due process. If you're going to remove them from the country based on these allegations of them being a gang, you have to give them some, small bit of like rights to defend themselves. And that's what several of the Court of Appeals judges and judges that touched this in various different jurisdictions across the United States have said. They have the right to a lawyer. And what's going to happen is they're going to lose all those cases, because when the government comes to present the case against all those men, the majority of them are going to show that we're not members of the $10 regular gang. And the basis for which you decided that we were is based on bullshit, thanks to the 60-minute segment, which had that expert say that that's not a thing in Venezuela. That gang member, it's not a thing. They just made it up. They just made it up. So it's a long story, long. They need to be this long, but at least it's more comprehensive, and it's coming from somebody who's been following this case. Now, if you want to continue to follow me, because again, like I said, I'm going to update you on the Stephanie Gallagher case. I'll keep watching that. I'm in the dockets. Some people call me the docket queens. And if you would like to hear from me and know, the best thing you can do is join up for my newsletter. You can join up for free at jjlegal.com. Now, if you want something in exchange, like I said, I have that guide that includes the Know Your Rights cards, includes the case trackers, includes where you can access the docket. All that information you get in exchange for email, so I can communicate with you twice a week directly and give you the updates. And I can keep you up. You never know. We might find him. I hope we do. So, JJ Legal, each one teach one. Share this video so more people know. I'm sorry it took so long. I promised it yesterday, but it's the holiday season. I have Christmas shopping after this video. Actually, I'm going to run off to go do some Christmas shopping and then come back and edit this video. So when I edit this video, you're going to be seeing the version after I do some last minute shopping. I need to get out. I've been home all day. And by the way, this is the third version of this video. The first video I did, it was 30 minutes. This is going to be 30 minutes. It was 30 minutes. Second video was 20 minutes, but I talked too fast. And I was like, oh, I can't I have to slow down. Then I did another version, and then this is like the third or fourth time. I got to just bite the bullet. And this is why it takes me so long to get stuff out. I take too long. I'm a perfectionist. And we'll see if I just publish this. You'll see whether I just publish this as is or whether I publish it with receipts. That's what takes me so long. I feel like I need to put receipts. I feel like people don't give me the benefit of the doubt and know what I'm talking about. And I have to show receipts all the time and make it more a comprehensive document. And ChatGPT, my friend Chat, and other people said, my husband said, you don't need to do all that. Anyway, JJ Legal, each one teach one. Share this video so more people know. I'm in the docket. Follow me for more information. And share, like, subscribe. Ding. I got you.